Alright, so we're going to look at how to construct an NCAA tournament simulation. And this is what it's going to look like when you're all done. On the left side here you have your tournament, and then over here on the right we've got it set up so that we can run basically 1,000 simulations and keep track of how often each of the teams advances to each particular round. So if we come back over here, the first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to find the ratings for each of the teams in the NCAA tournament using whichever rating system you choose to use. So on the Teams tab, you can see I've already entered in some ratings here. You're just going to find those again from the site that you choose. If you'd like to use mine, you can click on the Forbes tab and you can find the ratings there. Okay. Once you have those ratings entered, you're going to come back over to the Simulation tab. At the very top you'll see this 10 up here. You don't need to worry about that. What you're going to be doing is you're going to be entering in formulas for each of the particular matchups. And what you want to do is for this first set of matchups here, you're going to find the winner for that game and put it right here along the bottom team. For the second set, you're going to put it next to the top team. And you're going to do that all the way down. So Kentucky and Davidson, you'll put it next to Davidson. Arizona and Buffalo, you'll put it next to Buffalo. That way you always have the teams that are going to be playing each other next to each other in the next round. When you advance to a following round, you'll put those two teams in between the two games from before. So these two games are going right in between these two slots here. We've got Tennessee and Cincinnati in between these two. Then the winners of those games will advance. We'll put them in between those, and we keep doing that until we get all the way down to our champion, which in this simulation was North Carolina. Okay. So what are we going to enter for these formulas? You can see there's a pretty lengthy formula up here. Okay. And that formula is going to use a normal distribution to randomly select one of the two teams, basically. So we're going to need an if statement. So we start with equals if, and then we need a random variable, so a random number. So we're going to type in RAND and then open parentheses, close parentheses. So that's just going to give us a random number between 0 and 1. If that random number is less than some value from this normal distribution, okay, so we're going to type in norm.dist. Okay, so what we want it to do is we want it to take something from our bell curve, from our normal distribution, and we want to say if this random number is less than the difference between the score for Virginia and the score for UMBC, then one team wins. And if it's more than that, then the other team wins. So in order to do that, we need it to look up both of those teams. So we've got an open parentheses here with this formula called VLOOKUP. And what that's going to do is when we open the parentheses and we type in B3 there, it's going to look up Virginia. We need a comma, and we need to tell it where to look up Virginia. So on my example here, it's looking up Virginia on the Forbes worksheet. So Forbes exclamation point. Yours is going to be looking it up on the Teams worksheet, so you're going to type in Teams exclamation point. Then we want it to select the area that we want. So in this case, I have from A3 to B353. And that's because if I look at this worksheet, my teams are in A3 all the way down to B353 down here. Okay. So if you have it typed into a different area, like on this Teams worksheet, you might go from B2 all the way down to B65. Okay? So you want to make sure that you're selecting the correct area for that formula. We also want to select the correct column. So our ratings are in column 2. So if I look back here on the team's worksheet, my first column is the team name, my second column is the rating. So I want to select column 2. And then I want to write false. What the false does is it says we're only going to return something if we find that exact match of Virginia there. So what it's doing is it's looking up Virginia's rating. Then we're going to look up UMBC's rating, and we want to subtract the two. We want to find the difference between the two ratings. So we're going to subtract, and then we need to look up again. So VLOOKUP B4, so UMBC. And again, you want to look up the same place you did over here. So again, for you, it's probably going to be teams, exclamation point, and then the range. What these dollar signs do is they make it so that when you copy this formula to another cell, it doesn't shift the area that you're looking at. Okay? It doesn't shift this table down with it. Basically, this entire formula here, this VLOOKUP part, is the exact same as it is over here. The only difference is you're changing the B3 to a B4, so that you go from Virginia to UMBC. Okay. Close that parentheses. And then, so we're still in this normal distribution formula. That was our X value. Okay. Now we need the mean. Well, we're going to say that the mean is 0. That would mean that the two teams were equal in rating. Okay. The standard deviation is going to be this 10 value at the very top of this sheet. Again, we want the dollar signs in there so that when we copy this formula down, it maintains that cell right there. And then we want true here because we want it to add up that probability. Okay? So what we're doing here is we're figuring out essentially what's the probability that Virginia's rating is going to be better than UMBC's rating. Okay? If this random number that we got has a probability that's less than that value, then we want it to return Virginia as our champion, or our winner in that game. If that random number is not less than, so you can see here value if false, then we want it to return UMBC as the winner of this game. Okay, so somewhat complicated formula. If you take stats, prob and stats, AP stats, you'll understand this normal distribution part a little bit better. But again, we're looking up the ratings of the two teams, subtracting them from each other. And then the normal distribution is basically finding the probability that Virginia would outscore UMBC. And then we're looking at, just like we did with the seeding one, if we get some random number that's less than that probability, we pick the first team. If it's greater than that probability, we pick the second team. Okay. That formula is going to populate most of this entire section on the left here. So you'll notice the formulas stay the same. The only thing that's going to change is these values right here. The B5, the B6, the B5, and the B6. Okay? Because we need to select the next two teams. So for this one, we want Creighton and Kansas State, so we have to choose B5 and B6. If we come down here to Kentucky, we can see that we're using B7 and B8 in those two spots. Okay, B7 and B8. Okay. So what you can do is you can copy, once you have these first two formulas in here, you can do Control-C to copy, come down here, and do a Control-V to paste. And you'll notice it moved the 7 and the 8. Okay? It took this formula up here, which had a 3 and a 4, B3 and B4, and since we're moving it down 4 spots, it turned it into a B7 and a B8. So you could do that. You could Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste, and you could keep using Control-V to paste all the way down. Okay. Moving over to the next column, you could use Control-V again, but if we do that, it's going to give us this error. And that's because if we look at where we're looking up here now, we've got C5 and C6, and you can see to the right here, that's not quite what we want. We want C4 and C5. Okay. So I'm just going to undo that, and if we look at our formula now, C4 and C5. So what you can do is you can copy this formula and paste it over here. You just need to go in and change this so that you get the two teams that you want, C4, C5, C4, C5. Those are the only things that you need to change. And again, you can copy that down as you go, copy it over. Again, make sure that these values, D6 and D7, are always choosing the teams that you want to move on to that next game. Okay. We'll do that all the way until we get down to the champion, where you can see here G34 and G35. So it's selecting from these two teams to pick the winner. Okay. So you've got your teams, you've got your ratings. You want to use these formulas to determine who's going to win each matchup until you get all the way down to a champion. If I push the delete button, you can see that it changes. In this case, North Carolina over TCU wins it all. I push delete again, and I've got Virginia over Michigan State, North Carolina over Auburn. Okay. So you can see we could keep pushing delete and find who won the most out of 10, 20 times. But if we really want to run a lot of simulations, we want an easier way than just pushing delete. And that's where data tables are going to come in. So what you're going to do is you're going to come over here to column K. Let's put it in K4. And you're going to type in a 1. Okay. And then once you've typed in the 1, you're going to right click on this bottom right corner. You're going to drag it down and back up. Okay. And this menu is going to pop up. You're going to go down to series, and we want this to be in a column. We want it to go up by ones, and we want it to stop at 1000. And then you'll click OK. And once you do that, you'll get numbers all the way down to 1000. Okay. At the very top here, notice I have equals H34. That's my champion. Okay. So I want to type in equals H34 to put my champion right here. From here, we're going to create a data table which will almost instantaneously calculate the winner of 1,000 tournaments. If you do not have Microsoft Excel on your computer, if you're using Office 365, this might be where you have to end, and we can talk more about that later. For the rest of you, I'm going to post another video that will continue on with this.